everybody. Welcome back to Lesson 7 from Life Lessons, Trippin, Life Lessons from Abraham. I'm glad you're here, and you've probably noticed right away, because I've taken the time to train you well, I'm not wearing a hat. You're saying, Louis, where's the hat of the lesson? Well, I'm going to tell you. I've got a big surprise for you at the end of this lesson. Let's just say, those of you that know me know I've been to Myanmar many times. God willing, I'll go back many times. Love the people there. I've got the Myanmar hat for this lesson, but you have to wait till the end to see it because it's unbelievable. Right now, let me just say a word about the shirt I'm wearing. I wore this for 2 reasons. One, it's red, and I haven't worn red yet. And 2, celebrate recovery. I am not being paid for this endorsement, but if you've got an issue in your life you're struggling with that you can't overcome, or you're having a lot of trouble overcoming, I highly recommend CR for you. And in fact, the guy we're going to study today, he could have used Celebrate Recovery if they had had it back then, because today's lesson from Life Lessons from Abraham is called You Can't Go Home Again. And most of this lesson's not about Abraham. No, this time we're going to take a look at some lessons, some life lessons from Lot. And then at the end we will talk a little bit about Abraham. Now, the reason that I decided to do this was when I first began studying and teaching Abraham, I did, I think, what probably most people do, and that is, Lot is there, and he's like he's a supporting character in this drama. And so you talk about him when he's on stage and when he's a part of the story, and then that's it. But the more I thought about it, and the more I looked at Abraham's life, the more I began to realize there's something going on here with Lot. And that Lot, while he is a minor character, is an important character because when I really began to see what was going on with him, I realized, oh wow, the thing that Lot dealt with his entire life is a problem that I've had, and I'll bet if you haven't, many of you watching have. And so I thought, well, we need to talk about this. So I did a lesson on it. Life Lessons from Lot. And this is actually going to cover the whole story, but we're going to sort of focus on Genesis 19, but we'll be going a lot of other places. So, of course, yes, you need the outline. You need the Bible. Okay, you should know all this by now. So, have that stuff, get it ready, and let's go. The first thing about Lot that I want you to know is that Lot was righteous. It says that in the New Testament, but he wanted to go home again. The big problem Lot has when you study his life and look at it is Lot, who left Haran with Abraham and to go to Palestine, the Promised Land, Israel, we call it today, is that he wanted to go home again. He wanted to go back, but you know what? You can't go home again. You can't go back. Now sometimes you can sort of recapture things from your past, but in reality, life moves on. And relationships grow and people change and you grow and you change. And so I know a lot of people that look back at a certain phase of their Christian life like that was the golden age spiritually. Oh, I was so close to God then. And oh, it was so great. And oh, my church was so good and the pastor was so great and everything. And then, oh, this changed in my life and that changed and maybe the pastor left. And well, just slap yourself and tell yourself you're a Lot and you don't want to be Lot. You don't want to try to keep going home again. God's calling you forward. Your home is ahead of you. It is not behind you, okay? Lot did, as a city dweller. He was with Abram's family. Of course, he's part of the family in Haran. And he returned to that city dwelling as soon as he could after he left Abraham. And this is something I hadn't seen or noticed for a long time, but it's right there in the story. That Lot, as soon as he could, he got back to the city. He apparently wasn't real big on this whole living in a tent, living as a nomad, kind of camping as a lifestyle thing. No, Lot wanted city life. I mean, let's face it, city life's great. It's got a lot of amenities. Even back then, it was a lot easier to live in a city in many ways than to live out, under a tree somewhere or something. Take a look at Genesis 11, verses 31 and 32. Terah took his son, Abram, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram. And together they set out from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there, and Terah lived 205 years, and he died in Haran. See, the move actually began, when it actually began, Abraham even took his father all the way to Haran. And they stopped there. They settled there in that city. And I don't know how big of a city it was, but it was a big enough place for them to settle and prosper and be there. And then when Abraham's father dies, and the call is renewed sort of on Abraham, then he goes forward, and Lot, of course, as we know, goes with him. He took the easy way, something that God rarely calls us to do. That's the second thing I want you to notice about Lot. Not only does he want to go home again, and not only is he trying to return to city life, which is his home. That's what I'm saying, is he wants to go back to living in the city. When the decision points in his life came, he took the easy way. And that is something God rarely calls us to do. Jesus himself said, you know, the way is steep and narrow and tough. Remember this? We've already read this before, but let's go back and look at it again. So Abram said to Lot, let's not have any quarreling between you and me, or between your herdsmen and mine, for we are brothers. Is not the whole land before us? Let's part company. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left. And Lot looked up and saw the whole plain of Jordan was well watered, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, toward Zoar. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan and set out toward the east, and the two men parted company. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tents near Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Lord. That's Genesis 13, 8 through 13. Now, you notice that? We've said this before. Abram, great guy, he gives Lot the choice. And Lot looks around and he takes the easy way. He takes the well-watered plains where there's big cities there. And he wants to move back into the city so bad he can taste it. He's wanted this for years and years, and now's his chance. And so he chooses that. Abram says, fine. He takes his people and his stock and everything, and they go their way. And what does Lot do? Lot makes a beeline for Sodom and Gomorrah. Now it says he pitched his tents there. But as we'll see in a moment, he didn't stay in those tents long. He moved into the city pretty quickly, because he wanted to go back to that. That's the thing he wanted more than anything else. You remember when we talked about idolatry not long ago? Living in a city was for Lot an idol. That was the idol that was driving his life. He wanted that so bad. He wanted to go back. He wanted that easy city life. He wanted the prestige that came from living in a city. You know, he didn't want to be a hick or a country bumpkin. He wanted to live in the great, metropolis, and he wanted to be an important man there. And now he's a fairly wealthy man thanks to Abraham, so he has his shot now. He has his chance. And what are the results? What are the results in his life that come from this? Well, again, we've already covered this, but we'll look at it again real quickly. First result is he had to be rescued by Abraham. Remember when the kings came? The 4 kings seized all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their food, and then they went away. And they also carried off Abram's nephew Lot and his possessions, since he was living in Sodom. One who had escaped came and reported this to Abram the Hebrew. Now Abram was living near the great trees of Mamre, the Amorite, a brother of Eshcol and Aner, all of whom were allied with Abram. And when Abram heard that his relative had been taken captive, he called out the 318 trained men born in his household and went in pursuit as far as Dan. And during the night, Abram divided his men to attack them, and he routed them, pursuing them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. He recovered all the goods and brought back his relative Lot and his possessions, together with the women and the other people. Now, do you notice what's happening here? Something really interesting happened at the beginning of that story that I just read to you. It says, they also carried off Abram's nephew Lot and his possessions, since he was living where? In Sodom. So he pitched his tents near Sodom and Gomorrah, but it didn't take long for old Lot to move into town and start this whole process and try to find the respect and the comfort and the ease and the power and all these things that he thought city living was going to give him. And he jumps into that. And because he does, well, there he is, big, fat, dumb, and happy, sitting there waiting when these kings raid the city. And they look at him, and they know he's got a lot of stuff, and they say, come on, let's take him. And, of course, they're taking him thinking, well, we'll get him back home and set, and then we'll get a ransom. So not only are we going to get all the stuff he has, but then we'll go to Abraham and he'll give us more money. It looked like a really good thing for them to do. Well, didn't turn out so bad. You see, Lot gave in to this desire to go backwards instead of moving forward. But the only way he could do it, and this is your next bullet point, is to live with dreadful sin. See, the scriptures already told us Sodom and Gomorrah was a bad place, full of bad people. Really nasty stuff went on there. I mean, you know the story. If you haven't read the book, you've seen the movie. Again, God destroyed them. And so how bad does a town have to be for that to happen? It was bad. So bad. But he decided, I can tolerate it. Now he himself, as far as we know, did none of that. In fact, in the New Testament he's called righteous. So fine. I'll give him that. He's a righteous man, but his idolatry drives him to be somewhere he should not have been. Clearly shouldn't have been. And it caused all kinds of trouble for his uncle Abraham and for himself. And as we're about to see in a minute or two here, things got a lot worse. He moved into Sodom and his life pretty much, if you were going to chart it, pretty much went downhill from there. Oh, he had a few upticks, but it never worked out like he wanted to because he compromised. He compromised, not by doing anything bad. I want to make that really clear here. I'm not saying Lot was bad or evil or a sinner. I'm saying he compromised by living in a place where all this was going on. And as far as we can tell, he never said a word about it. He didn't do it himself, but on the other hand, he didn't stand up and say, come on, fellas, this is bad, this is wrong. We really need to stop. We need to reform this. We need to change this. None of that happened. He was compromised. And the root of the compromise was that idolatrous desire to be a city dweller and have the prestige and the power and all the things that in his mind were connected with that. That's exactly what happens with us. And it can happen with anything. I don't care what it is. Even a very, very good thing. In my mind, if I latch onto that and somehow say I attach my esteem to that, my self-esteem, my self-image, my self-worth, if I attach how important I am as a person to that, then that thing now is becoming an idol. Oh, I'm still trying to serve God. In fact, it can be serving God. There's a lot of pastors, and I know this because it's happened to me periodically when I was in the located ministry. Happens to guys all the time in the ministry. Ask, if you don't believe me, ask your pastor. He'll tell you. The church becomes an idol. Now here I am, I'm working hard, I'm trying to serve God, I'm working my brains out, I'm doing everything I can to make the church grow and to lead people to Christ and to, help people with their problems and all run the programs and all the things that pastors do. And yet, if the church gets up above God, what have I got here? Now, the very thing God gave me to do for him becomes an idol because it's replaced God. As I said before, idolatry is very subtle. And this is a great case of that. And the sad thing is that when I make anything but God my God, when anything takes the place of God in my life, it never works like it's supposed to. It never works out. And we can see this with Lot as an example. Lot clearly wanted to be respected in the city and be a big man on the city. But look at this. The truth is, and this is the next bullet point, he was never really accepted. Lot was never really accepted by the people in Sodom and Gomorrah. Look at this. This is from Genesis 19, verse 9. And this is in the middle of this whole drama that took place when the angels came to see him. "Get out of our way," they replied. And they said, "This fellow came here as an alien, and now he wants to play judge? We'll treat you worse than them." And they kept bringing pressure on Lot and moved forward to break down the door. See, when push comes to shove, the crowd outside wants to bring these angels out. They want to violate them sexually. And Lot is trying to protect them because that's, when you have a guest under your roof, you are responsible for that. And when push comes to shove, the real opinion of the people in Sodom comes out. And the real opinion is, you're nothing but a foreigner, Lot. You come in here, you think you're some big shot, you think you're going to throw your weight around, you think we're impressed with you? Well, we're not. We don't accept you. We don't respect you. We don't love you. We don't care about you at all. Wow. He gave up everything. He gave up being with Abraham and being part of God's plan to move into that city. And the people never respected him. They looked down on him. They didn't like him. He's just a foreigner. Yeah, he had money. They liked his money, I'm sure. They didn't care for him at all. So he lost the respect that he wanted. That's not all he lost. His obsession and desire to be the city dweller, to go home again, to have this thing, also caused him to lose his son-in-laws. Look at Genesis 19:14. This is after the angels have told him, look, God's going to judge this place. You need to get out now. So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who were pledged to marry his daughters. He said, hurry and get out of this place, because the Lord is about to destroy the city. But his son-in-law thought he was joking. They didn't believe him. They're like, oh, come on, Dad, come on. They ain't going to destroy that city. Now, you can sort of have some understanding of that. I mean, if someone came to your house today, knocked on the door, and said, man, you know, it's time to move because the city's going to be destroyed. God is going to destroy the city. You'd probably think, okay, hold up now. Just calm down. We just went through the rapture thing a little while ago. We've just been, you know. Now, who have you been listening to on the radio? What nut job have you been listening to? Well, you know, 99 times out of 100, you'd be right. This just happened to be that one time. And so they didn't go, and they were destroyed. But not only did he lose the respect that he wanted, did he lose his some of his standing by sort of compromising his beliefs. He lost his son-in-laws, but he also almost lost his life because he didn't want to leave. Lot fought to stay. Now the angels have come, and they're trying to get these people out of there because they know the Lord is about to judge the town. Now, we pick up the story here. With the coming of dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, hurry, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished. Now, if you had 2 angels in your house telling you this, what would you do? Here's what Lot did. When he hesitated, now why is he hesitating? Hesitating? What are you hesitating for, Lot? God's going to destroy the city. Get the heck out of there. Well, you know why he was hesitating, because we've all experienced this. I'm in a situation where I'm going to have to give something up. I'm going to have to lose something, and I just can't quite bring myself to let it go. Or maybe you've lost it. You know, when you see some people after, say, a building burns down or a tornado strikes, and you watch, you know, the news media is always there to film them as they show up and look at the pile of rubble that used to be their home. And you can tell that they're stunned and they can't quite take it in. They can't quite believe it. Lot's that way. He can't, this is what he worked for and wanted all of his life. He thought he had finally arrived when he came to Sodom, and now he has to leave, and so he hesitates. So what happens? I love this. The men grasped his hand and the hands of his wife and of his 2 daughters and led them safely out of the city, for the Lord was merciful to them. The angels actually grabbed all 4 of them. You know, one each. You know, one angel took Lot and his wife, the other angel took 2 daughters or whatever, and they actually drug him out of the city. They said, come on, let's go. And they pulled him out of the city because they were standing there going, oh, we can't leave. What am I going to do? What am I going to take with me? I can almost see Lot and his wife. It's sort of like, have you ever done the little thing where people say, well, if you could only save 5 things in your house, what would it be? If you only had like a couple of minutes, the house is going to burn down. You can only take 5 things with you. What would it be? Well, do all my books count as one thing? Oh, good, I'll take all my books. Yeah, like these things are going anywhere in 5 minutes. And the reason that we do things like that is exactly why Lot hesitated, because he just can't imagine giving it up. I can't give this up. He didn't have a choice. They pulled him out of the house. Now, let's pick it up in Genesis 19. And as soon as they had brought them out, one of them said, flee for your lives. Don't look back. Now, notice this. Lot had been looking backwards, metaphorically, his whole life, wanting to go back home, wanting to go back to the city where he came from, wanting that lifestyle back there that he didn't have with Abraham. Don't look back. And don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away. Now, the angels are pretty clear about this. They're pretty clear. You need to go. You need to go now. You need to go fast. You don't look back. And you get out of the plains. You get up into the mountains where it's going to be safe. Because if you don't, you're dead. Okay, it's pretty clear. You know, they've done all they could for him. Now it's up to you. And so there they go. And what happens? You know what happens. He lost his wife. Genesis 19, 25 and 26. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain. You notice it's not just Sodom and Gomorrah. It's that area, that whole little area there, including all those living in the cities and also the vegetation in the land. But Lot's wife looked back and she became a pillar of salt. Lot's wife is a lot like Lot, looking back. See, she wanted the city life too. She loved it. I mean, who wants to go out and live out in the country in a dumb tent when you can live in a town and have a roof over your head and shops and all this stuff? She just couldn't bear not looking. She had to look. It cost her her life. Lot lost his wife because she looked back. It killed her. Looking back will kill you and I too, spiritually, emotionally. Some of you, your relationships, your marriages, or your relationship with your kids or grandkids are being damaged because you're looking back. You know, I've talked to a lot of people. So, well, you know, she's not like she was when I married her. He's not the handsome young man. Well, what did you expect? He was going to stay 25 forever? That she was going to stay 18 forever? Well, sorry, Bunky. That's not how it works. Of course, our bodies change, and we change, and we grow. You're not the person you were 20 years ago. Neither is your wife. You think back to your kids when they were so cute when they were little. Well, now they're teenagers. They're not so cute anymore, maybe. Well, deal with it. They're never going to be 5 again, okay? You had that. I hope you enjoyed it. Now it's time to move on. We all have to do that. Don't look back. And the next thing that he lost was he lost his daughter's innocence. Lot lost his daughter's innocence. And as a sub-point to that, they fell into not just sin, but really demeaning sin. And they violated him. I mean, you think about the shock that these people are in. They're just so shocked they can hardly stand it. All this destruction and death has happened. And they're up in the mountains. And who knows, you know, where do we go from here? And one day the older daughter said to the younger, our father is old and there is no man around here to lie with us, as is the custom over all the earth. Let's get our father to drink wine and then lie with him and preserve our family line through our father. Now remember when I talked about cultural imperatives pushing you to do things that you shouldn't do? Their desire to have a child is so great that they're willing to violate the taboo of having sex with a parent. It's mind-boggling when you stop to think about it. And some of you are going, ew, that's gross. Yeah, it is gross. All sin is gross. And that's why God punishes it and forbids it. But that's what they did. And that night, they got their father to drink wine, and the older daughter went in and lay with him. He was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. And the next day, the older daughter said to the younger daughter, last night I lay with my father. Let's get him to drink wine again tonight. And you go in and lie with him so we can preserve our family line through our father. So they got their father to drink wine that night also. And the younger daughter went and lay with him. And again, he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. So both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father. The older daughter had a son, and she named him Moab. He is the father of the Moabites of today. The younger daughter also had a son, and she named him Ben-Ammi, and he is the father of the Ammonites of today. So Lot's 2 daughters became pregnant from him, and they fathered tribes who would be hostile to Israel. So again, the legacy of Abraham is threatened by short-sightedness and sin on not Abraham's part now, but his nephew's part. And that's pretty sad, but we're not done yet, because he lost something else. He lost his confidence, and he lived in constant fear. Let's back up a little bit. Genesis 19:18, as they're fleeing. But Lot said to them, the angels, no, my lords, please, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have shown great kindness to me in sparing my life, but I can't flee to the mountains. This disaster will overtake me, and I'll die. Look, here is a town near enough to run to, and it is small. Let me flee to it. It is very small, isn't it? Then my life will be spared. That's Genesis 19:18 through 20. See, even in the midst of destruction, he doesn't get it. He still wants to live in a town, even if it's a little one. He's obsessed with this, and he cannot see the obsession. That's how idolatry works. That's how it blinds our eyes and our hearts, and it ruins our lives. But look what happens. It didn't work out. Look at Genesis 19:30. Lot and his 2 daughters left Zoar and settled in the mountains, for he was afraid to stay in Zoar. And he and his 2 daughters lived in a cave. Lot's afraid to live in the mountains, but he's afraid to live in the town because of what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah, and they never loved him or accepted him or treated him right. He knew that at the end. So now, Lot's a man living in constant fear. He is afraid to go this way, and he's afraid to go that way. And that's how we come to the end of his story. How sad and pathetic it is. And it's all because, not because he was a bad person, not because he was an evil sinner, not because he wanted to do something horrible, but because he couldn't let go of his past. He couldn't look to the future. He couldn't accept the hard way, not the easy way. And it destroyed not just his life, and his wife's life, and his daughter's lives, but it just also led to persecution for generations of his relatives. All because he couldn't let go. Now, real quick, I want to look at Abraham here, because Abraham obviously ties into the story. He had prayed for God about Sodom earlier. Now look what happens. Unlike a lot of us, Abraham faced the consequences of his actions. He had prayed and asked God, all the way down to 10 people. Look what it says in Genesis 19:27 and 28. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and returned to the place where he had stood before the Lord. So it's right where he had prayed to God. And he looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah, toward all the land of the plain, and he saw dense smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a furnace. Wow. He faced the consequences of his action. He looked at what had happened, and I'm sure he learned a lesson. The second thing I want you to see is how God blessed others because of Abraham. Look at Genesis 19:29. So when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham and brought Lot out of the catastrophe that overthrew the cities where Lot had lived. Did you notice that? God chose to save Lot not because of Lot, but because of Abraham. You see, Lot himself wasn't sinning, but he was compromised. He was obsessed with the city dwelling. He wasn't thinking about God. God knows all this, of course. But because Abraham prays, God intervenes. But even watching the city blow up around you practically, watching your wife die because she looked back, even that wasn't enough to snap Lot out of his obsession. And so Lot's story is a very, very sad ending. And I hope you'll learn from it. That as believers, if we're going to learn from Abraham, if we're going to live a life of faith, you've got to put your past behind you. Celebrate Recovery is a good ministry to help you do that. And get on with moving into your future. Now is time for the hat. I've been to Myanmar as of this taping 8 times. And I love Myanmar. I love the people of Myanmar. My last trip, I was thinking about doing these videos. I wanted to look around and get me a baseball cap, just like you've seen me wear, that said Myanmar or the Golden Land or whatever. Couldn't find one. Talked to people. They'd never even heard of the idea. They were like, they didn't even know what I was talking about. So, I got me a Myanmar hat. Now, the screen's going to go black right about now, because I have to put this on to surprise you, and I want you to take a good look at this, because you will more than likely never ever see me wear this again, and I think I've got it just about right. So, now the screen will be back on. Check it out! Myanmar hat, yeah. I know it looks like some nightmare hat that was over at that royal wedding not too long ago. But actually, this is a real Myanmar hat. See, you got the Burmese right on there. Bought it in a store. My good dear friend Naomi helped me find this. And I'm going to show you a picture here of some other real Burmese people actually wearing this. So this is actually a traditional hat. Now, there were only 2 colors in the store. There was this and there was pink. Now you know why I chose this. And I hope you enjoyed looking at me wearing this, because I seriously doubt you will ever see me wear it again, okay? All right, let's do a quick prayer before your discussion time. Father God, thank you for the lesson of Lot. It's a sad lesson. It's a hard lesson. But God, it's such an important lesson. Give us grace to learn it. Help us, God, to let go of our past, no matter how hard it may be, no matter how long it takes. Lord, we leave the past behind us, as Paul said, and stretch out towards the future to be all that Jesus wants us to be. Bless this discussion, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, everybody. Time to go. Have a discussion. We'll be back again for the next lesson. Until then, God bless you. Take care. And I'll see you later. Oh, I missed again.